Hey y'all, it's here. It's finally here. Fall is finally here where I live in Wylie, Texas. We finally have lows down into the 50s. It is cool enough that I needed jeans and more of a sweater shirt, and I'm still pretty chilly out here on the front porch, but I've got my blanket behind me to help me out. Not cold enough that I'm not drinking a cold soda. I'm not a coffee person. Can you imagine my personality on coffee, like on a ton of coffee? Yeah, it won't work out. So anyway, now that it's super cold, now that it's cooler here in Wylie, Texas, and more fall-esque, I wanted to do a video and chat a little bit more about mums, chrysanthemums, that type of thing. Mums are typically associated with fall flowers. You go to your nursery or your local big box store or whatever, and typically right around, September, all the mums start popping up there. You can get them in 4-inch pots. You can get them massive, beautiful, giant designs filled with mums. And they're beautiful fall colors. You get burgundies and burnt orange and rust and dark purples and yellows and white, just beautiful, beautiful colors. And they all start popping up right now, and we automatically think, oh, mums are fall flowers, and we buy these beautiful fall flowers, we bring them to our home, and we live with them for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then they all die, and we're done. We throw them away. A lot of people think of them as more of a disposable, seasonal type plant, like an annual type thing. Well, I wanted to talk to you guys about utilizing these fall mums and taking them and incorporating them in your garden once you're done enjoying them, because mums can be more than just one season. Now, what most people don't realize is that hardy mums, specifically hardy mums, are perennials. They are mums that you can enjoy in your fall. Go ahead and plant them in your garden. They'll die all the way back, and then they'll come back each season for you. Mine typically start to show up at the end of March. I start to see a little bit of green coming at the base. They are typically ready to be in full bloom by May, big and beautiful. Typically around then, after they've had a big bloom cycle, I will cut them back by at least 1/3, sometimes 2/3, just depending on what's going on in my garden. And then they will come back again and give me another flush in July. And then typically at the end of July, I give them another trim back, once again by about 1/3 to 2/3. And then they will give me a flush that will be in timing with fall. So all the blooms will start showing up in September. They'll last through October. I'll cut everything back down in November, and then we'll get our first frost, and they'll be gone for the rest of the year until they once again perk back up in March. Okay, let's talk about transferring these mums at the end of the fall season into the ground. I have no problem planting them as long as my ground is not frozen, which is typically never an issue in my area. It is an issue if you're in zones that are a lot cooler. I am in zone 8A. And so typically what I'll do is when I'm ready to plant them, I'll find a place in my garden. I'll dig a hole. I will add some type of compost or fertilizer. Typically, I like to do the plant tone fertilizer. And then I'll put the mum in that hole, cover it all up. I like to add some mulch around the base just to kind of keep it a little bit warmer through the first couple of frosts. And then after that, you're good to go. Now, pro tip on planting mums: if you buy those big, beautiful pots that are just like massively large, and I am a sucker for those. They're just absolutely stunning. If you buy those are so much harder to plant, So if you decide you're going to plant those large ones, obviously you're digging a massive hole, go ahead and look underneath the foliage. Look down to see if your plant is composed of multiple mum plants in that one pot. If it's multiple and it's 3 plants in there, you can divide those 3 plants up, and then it'll be easier to plant them instead of planting one big large pot of mums. Now, if you don't want to break that up, that's fine too. You can plant the big large ones. I am a proponent of, I will only plant 4-inch mums. I will only plant the little bitty mums. I don't plant the big ones. I toss them because, y'all, I don't want to dig a big hole. My area has tons of clay. It's not a pleasant experience to dig a big hole for a new plant. And so I like to start all my plants off small just because it's easier for me to get in there. And so I will typically start off just with a 4-inch mum. Now, that 4-inch mum in one season can go from like this to this, all right? So it's this size in the fall. You go through all your winter and all your freezes and come back in the spring and it starts to bloom up, and it was this size in the fall, and by May, it's this size. It will be massive, all right? So keep that in mind. Mums do prefer a lot of sunshine, okay? I do have some that are in part shade. They do fine, but they don't do as well as the ones that are in full sun. If I'm gonna plant into my garden, I like to choose colors that will work well through multiple seasons. So I don't have like rust, orangey kind of dark orange colors. I don't have that type of color or that mum in my garden because I feel like it's just too fall for me. I just associate that with too much fall. And so in my garden, I have white, I have yellow, I have a pale purple tone, which is beautiful, and I do have a dark red because I love those dark red blooms from when I come around to July 4th arrangements and that kind of stuff. Now, switching to arrangements. A lot of people don't realize that you can utilize these mums as cut flowers. Yeah. They're beautiful cut flowers. They are long-lasting cut flowers, and they're absolutely wonderful, especially when you've started with this, small petite mum. You've get in a full season and it's grown really, really large. You get the long branches. Sometimes my branches are 2 feet long, and so you can cut mums and bring them inside for arrangements. It's one of my favorite things to do, especially in the spring when I need that bright white or that bright yellow, and then once again coming into the fall when I'm looking for those beautiful dark reds, the deep purples, that type of thing for autumn arrangements. Okay, let's talk about mums, chrysanthemums, specifically as a cut flower. I have not grown any from seed. I've only grown what I can get at my nursery or in a big box store type of situation. Now, one of my favorite floral seed companies to follow is Floret, and they are recently offering a course where they're going to talk about heirloom chrysanthemums. And I am all over that. I cannot wait to buy seeds for heirloom chrysanthemums. But if you're so inclined, I'll drop that link below. You guys go check that out. And that is something that I will be looking into for this fall, for this spring. I'm going to be looking into growing some heirloom chrysanthemums. I want to grow some with some really long stems. I want to grow some with some really unusual colors, some unique kind of petal counts, some unique petal shapes. And that's something that could be really great because chrysanthemums are a staple in the floral world. They are long lasting. They're typically fairly easy to grow. They're not expensive blooms, and you can get a lot of impact with chrysanthemums if you utilize them in the correct way. Now, let's talk about deadheading or pruning your mums. Pruning my mums is something I typically will do. I'll do it in the spring at least once. I'll do it in the summer, and then I rarely do it in the fall because I try to time it so that I have beautiful fall blooms. Now, a lot of people go about deadheading mums in different ways. A lot of them will go and pick each individual flower as it is the flower has kind of gone by the wayside, it's turned brown. You pull that flower off, and almost always underneath that flower are more buds ready to kind of come up in that place. And you can definitely do that. I do not have the patience to go and individually pick off each flower. It's not who I am as a person. Do I get as many flowers as I could potentially get by picking each one off? No, I do not. If you pick each individual one off, you're going to get a longer blooming season. Absolutely, hands down, that is the best way to get longer flowers. But I don't want to do that. So when I am pruning mums, I typically let them go through a bloom cycle. When the blooms start turning brown and they're no longer attractive, I will come back in and I will cut back, and I will cut it hard. I will cut it back by a third, and I just go in and I just cut it back. I don't pay attention to if I'm cutting above a leaf. I don't pay attention to leaving buds behind. I don't pay attention to any of that. I just come through, grab a handful, and start cutting back by at least 1/3. Now, if my chrysanthemum has flopped really hard, and that happens, like the chrysanthemum will get so big and beautiful and then it just kind of lets go and it's so heavy that it opens up, I will cut it back by a half to 60% at that point, just to kind of allow it to refocus and re-strengthen at the base and then to grow back up and fill in the space. Now, if you are growing mums and flopping the mums is a problem, you can absolutely go in and utilize some type of kind of circle. I like a peony ring, peony, whatever you guys call it. I call it peonies. I like a peony ring at the base of the mum. Then the mum grows up through it, and then when it starts to flop, the peony ring keeps it from moving out to the edges. Okay, and that's a great, easy way to keep your mum from flopping, but also keeping it growing more straight up, and then allowing you to have more cut flowers from it. Okay, let's go back to another pruning technique that I've read a lot of gardeners doing. They've got mums in their garden. Their mums start to green up in the spring, and then they start to fill out, and immediately before they start blooming, the gardener will start pulling the buds off, and they won't allow their mum to bloom until the fall. Okay, this is absolutely a direction you can go. But I'm here to tell you, in zone 8A or similar zones, kind of like mine, you can let them bloom, prune, and then go back and let them bloom again. You can get multiple bloom cycles, so you can get more bang for your buck. It is a lot of work to allow this plant to kind of start coming into its own, starting in March through April. Then all of the blooms start showing up in May, and start picking them all off, not allowing them to bloom. And you have to consistently keep up with that May, June, July, August, September, and then finally allowing them to bloom into the fall. That's a lot of pruning, and that's a lot of work, y'all. And so I highly suggest just letting them bloom. Once they're done with the bloom cycle, cutting them back, and then letting them bloom again for the fall. Now, let's talk about some basics on how to successfully grow mums. They need at least 6 hours of sunlight. I have some planted in full sun. I have some planted in partial shade. Definitely the ones in full sun are 2 times as large. However, the ones in partial shade are still beautiful, and I enjoy that bright pop of white or that bright pop of yellow in those shady areas. So that still works as well. So if you have some semi-shady areas and you want to put some mums in, go for it. Try it out. When planting mums, you definitely need a well-draining soil. Now, I say well-draining. I have clay. I have a lot of clay, you guys. And I have definitely been guilty of digging a hole and sticking a mum in a big vat of clay, throwing in some fertilizer, throwing in some mulch, mixing it up, tossing it in there, and going for it. And they do beautifully. I'm just going to throw that out there. Are they probably going to do better in like really wonderful, well-draining soil? Yeah, they probably are. But for my purposes, specifically in my front garden, that's where I utilize a lot of them. And I'm putting them and tucking them in different places. I don't typically stress about it too much on the draining aspect. Now, is my soil completely all clay? No, it's not. I've been working on this front garden long enough that I've built up a good 6 inches of better soil on top of this clay. And typically when I'm digging down in the clay, I'll remove some clumps of clay and get rid of them and then fill it back in with compost, okay? But my garden is not some beautiful magic garden of all well-draining soil. It definitely has at least 50% clay, and these mums do beautifully in the clay. Now, mums tend to be drama queens about water. If they don't get enough water, they definitely, all their leaves go limp, they get sad looking, that type of thing. So they definitely need a regular watering schedule. Right now, during the fall season, my mums get watered twice a week. During the hottest part of the summer, my mums get watered every day, okay? And that's truthfully my whole front garden. Now, when I say watered every day, they're not getting saturated for 30 minutes. They're getting 10 minutes of water through all the drip lines in the garden. So just enough to keep them moist and keep them happy. But definitely, if you don't have a drip system set up, keep an eye on your mums. Check on them every 2 to 3 days and give them water as needed. And then especially give them more water during dry spells. Now, putting to bed mums for the winter is fairly easy. I wait till there's a first frost and a light frost. I'm not talking a hard frost, a light frost, and all the foliage is kind of wilted, dead, dried, whatever. I cut them off at the base, and then I just add a couple of layers or a couple of inches of mulch on top. Some mums are not going to survive, y'all. It is a little bit of hit or miss sometimes, especially if you're buying a mum from a nursery or a big box store in the fall, because sometimes those mums are not hardy mums, all right? But your investment's not massive. So that doesn't really stress me out if it doesn't end up being a hardy mum. But so I cut them off the base, I add my mulch, and that's typically enough in my zone 8A, for them to come back in the spring, no problem. Now, when I'm putting my garden to bed for the winter, I'll typically add a layer of fresh compost across my entire garden, and that includes mums as well. And then when the spring comes along, I will typically do another application of fertilizer, whether it's compost or plant tone or something along those lines. So my mums do get fertilized twice a year. Now, I have not typically had any issues with types of disease, mold, fungus, anything along those lines on mums. I have had 1 or 2 plants over the years, and I'm talking several years, that definitely looked like they had some type of mold or some type of fungus. I have never taken the time to treat this mold or fungus. My monetary investment in these mums is so small that I'm not interested in going and buying a $15 treatment to go back on this mum. I just pull the mum out and I throw it away. I'm not willing to risk this $4 investment where the mold or fungus might spread to other areas. So what I do is I remove the mum from that area, and then I don't plant anything there for a season or so, just to allow it to make sure it's all cleared up. It feels so good out here. Oh. Yesterday, my family finally got out of quarantine, and my 2 sons had COVID, and we finally got through our quarantine period, which is fabulous. And so we went and walked around at what's called McKinney Trade Days, and it's kind of like an antique, vintage, kind of craft fair type of thing, and it was all outside. Oh, and it was fabulous. Oh my gosh, it felt so good walking around in the fresh air. It felt like it rejuvenated my soul, so it was just wonderful. Now, mums actually have some natural repellent qualities. They are actually, chrysanthemums are typically used in some type of insect repellents, dog shampoos, things like that. And so having them in your garden is kind of fabulous because they do repel things like ants and Japanese beetles and ticks and things along those lines. So it is kind of nice to have some chrysanthemums in your garden for that. Are they going to get rid of all of them in your garden? No, they're not going to get rid of all of them in your garden, but having some mums up on your patio might be really great so that you can enjoy your outdoor patio without the fear of bugs attacking you. Now, let's say that you've planted this cute little 4-inch mum, and then after one season, your beautiful, cute little 4-inch mum is now, 2.5 feet wide, massive. You can absolutely get to your fall season, pull up your mum, and divide out the root system. Be sure to cut back any type of dried, dead, anything that doesn't look good on the root system or of course on the stems or anything like that. But you can go ahead and divide up these roots and then separate it into multiple plants in your garden. So it's super easy to divide chrysanthemums. I typically like to do this in the fall season when the weather's cooler and I have an opportunity to divide it and put it back in the ground and allow it to create a new root system before the first frost comes along. I wonder how long I can stay out here without my family finding me. It feels so good. I love it. I fixed my hair today, y'all. Y'all don't typically get to see me like put effort into the way I look. I'm definitely not one of those YouTube gardeners who puts on the makeup and does the hair before gardening. It is hot here where I live, y'all. It's so hot and so humid, and if I had makeup on, it would all just pour off and my hair would be just a hot mess. And so I totally, like, I know some gardeners live in beautiful climates that are not like mine and they can wear makeup and everything. It's not my thing. And when I work, I'm a hot mess. I'm not a clean gardener. I'm a messy gardener, so I've got stuff all over me, the whole thing. But today, did my hair for y'all. I still didn't put on makeup though. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this mom talk today. I am a big proponent of mums. I know a lot of gardeners. The mailman's here. Okay, I'm a big proponent of mums. I know a lot of like professional and, you know, established gardeners kind of liken mums to zinnias. They're easy to grow. They're not any type of challenge, and they kind of laugh at those of us who like to grow zinnias. I love to grow zinnias. So a lot of people, a lot of gardeners think of mums in the same way. I'm here to tell you that if you're a beginner gardener, mums are a fabulous way to begin gardening. It's a fabulous way to like gain satisfaction and gain confidence, same way that zinnias are as well. And then I'm also here to tell you that if you're an established gardener, mums are still a beautiful way to bring color into your garden, have cut flowers, and really enhance the overall look and texture of your garden. So don't discount mums just from something else you've heard someone say about how they're not worth it or things along those lines. They're absolutely worth it, and they bring a lot of joy, and any type of joy that your garden can bring you, it's worth it, y'all. Thanks so much for joining me today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you guys drop me a comment. I am trying so hard to grow my channel. Y'all, I would love to be able to do this full time. So if you're up for it, feel free to share a video, comment below, let me know how you're doing. And as always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all. Oh, I did want to tell you guys that all the photos in this video are mums from my garden.